Man, things are getting weird in Detroit, and you'll see why. There was a sudden offensive turnaround that nobody expected. A former Lions quarterback just issued a warning that could be more impactful than people realize. And somehow a young quarterback from another team is being mentioned as a possible option. All of this came to light today, and the fans are buzzing. So let's take it one step at a time, because the first piece of news is already causing quite a stir. Alright, let's talk about what's really heating up this week. Packers versus Lions on Thanksgiving, and the buzz isn't just about the matchup, it's about how Detroit's offense suddenly looks different with Dan Campbell grabbing the play sheet again. Yeah, he took over the play calling, and it's turning into one of the most talked about tweaks in the league right now. Detroit's offense wasn't bad at all before this. They were still top 10 across almost every advanced metric: DVOA, EPA per play, success rate. But Campbell clearly felt something was off. He wanted that old efficiency back, that punch this unit had over the past couple years. So after a rough week 1 where they barely scored until garbage time, the Lions shifted gears. And here's where it gets interesting. Since Campbell started calling plays again around weeks 10 through 12, Detroit actually got better. EPA play jumped into the top 6, success rate into the top 7. Not a massive scheme overhaul, but definitely cleaner execution, faster pacing, and more intentional usage of their playmakers. And Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, isn't brushing it off. He's been watching the tape and he's impressed, even if he's not trying to hype it up too much publicly. When asked if Detroit's offense changed a lot with Campbell at the wheel, he basically said, look, maybe not schematically, but the dude's putting his guys in great positions. And the part that stood out the most? LaFleur kept circling back to Detroit's weapons. He's not just talking about 1 or 2 guys, he's talking about a full deck. First off, Jahmyr Gibbs. Since Campbell started dialing up plays, Gibbs' involvement exploded. Over the last 3 games, he's been targeted at a higher rate per route than anyone else in the entire NFL. Not just running backs, anyone. That's insane. Campbell basically turned him into a mismatch machine, and defenses are struggling to keep up. Then you've got the offensive line, which LaFleur called one of the best units he's seen on tape. And he wasn't exaggerating, and when that group is rolling, the whole offense looks smoother. It gives Jared Goff time, and Goff's been playing some of the best football of his career the last couple seasons. LaFleur straight up said it, Goff is performing at an extremely high level. And of course, Detroit still has a long list of playmakers. Amon-Ra St. Brown doing Amon-Ra things, Jameson Williams adding that deep threat chaos, and the backfield duo of Gibbs and David Montgomery, maybe the most complementary pair in the league. The only real setback is losing Sam Laporta for now, which hurts. But Detroit still has enough firepower to keep defenses honest. And if that wasn't enough, the next story hit even harder. A former Lions quarterback just fired a warning shot about what could derail this team moving forward. And it dropped today. Now here's where things get a little uncomfortable for Detroit, because this one didn't come from a reporter or some hot take show. It came from a former Lions quarterback who knows the franchise inside out, Rodney Peete. Peete didn't sugarcoat anything. He basically said Detroit is walking into a potential mess, and the center of it all is Dan Campbell calling the plays. Yeah, he went straight at the heart of what everyone's been whispering. The Lions have been a playoff team the last 2 years. NFC Championship appearance in 2023, number 1 seed in 2024. But when the postseason pressure hits, they've stumbled. And even this season, sitting at 7-4, they haven't looked like the dominant unit people expected. They nearly dropped a game to the Giants in week 12 after trailing in the 4th quarter, and they flat out lost to the Eagles in week 11 while going 0 for 5 on 4th downs. So Peete sees a pattern, and for him, the big turning point was Campbell deciding to take play calling away from new offensive coordinator John Morton. In his words, what I don't like is that Campbell took over the play calling duties. It's a disruption. Morton is only in his 2nd year ever as an OC, first with Detroit, and Peete thinks he needed room to grow. Instead, Campbell stepped in right before week 10 against Washington, and Detroit exploded for 44 points. Great. But then they followed that with a 9-point dud against Philly, then another explosion for 34 against the Giants. Total roller coaster. And that's Peete's point. The highs and lows are going to create drama, and Campbell is going to get all the praise when it works and all the blame when it doesn't. That's not sustainable, especially with the Lions fighting for a playoff spot and sitting just behind the 49ers in the standings. Peete even warned that the media attention alone could cause distractions. Every week, the headline becomes the same thing. Did Campbell call the right plays? Should Morton get the job back? Is this hurting the team? He thinks it's unnecessary noise, and that they should have just stuck with Morton calling the shots. And this isn't some random opinion from a guy who played one season there. Peete was drafted by Detroit in 1989, started 47 games, played with Barry Sanders, and helped take the team to the NFC Championship game in 1991, the last time the Lions won a playoff game for more than 3 decades. When he talks about the pressure in Detroit, he's not guessing. He even added that this back and forth over who deserves the credit could trip them up down the stretch. And honestly, he might have a point. Detroit's offense has been either elite or ice cold. No in between, and the season is getting late. And just when it felt like Detroit already had enough noise around the building, another storyline popped up, and this one throws the future of the quarterback room into question. Alright, now let's get into the story that made everybody stop scrolling for a second. The talk about Shedeur Sanders and whether he could somehow be connected to Detroit's future. Yeah, that rumor exploded out of nowhere, and it's got a lot of Lions fans looking around like, wait, what? Here's what actually happened. Shedeur had a really solid debut with the Cleveland Browns, looked calm, looked confident, made plays off script, and immediately people started asking if he's auditioning for a long-term job somewhere else. And on Up and Adams, former NFL QB Kurt Benkert threw out a take that turned heads. He said Shedeur could fit really well in Detroit's offensive system. And to be fair, he gave a pretty detailed breakdown. Benkert loved how Shedeur handled pressure, how he moved in the pocket, even the interception he threw. He called it more of a great defensive play than a bad read. What really impressed him was how fast Shedeur processed things. On a big explosive play, he recognized the blitz instantly and didn't bail into a check down like rookies usually do. He took the shot and trusted his arm. Benkert even compared Shedeur's skill set to something that fits a Shanahan-style offense. Timing, rhythm, accurate short game, but with enough mobility to stretch plays when things break down. That's where the Detroit connection comes in, because the Lions run a system that shares a lot of that DNA. But here's the big reality check. Jared Goff isn't going anywhere. Detroit invested in him heavily. The offense is literally built around what he does well, and even though he struggles under consistent pressure, which has been obvious this season against elite defensive lines, he's still been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league when he has a clean pocket. And then there's the money. Moving on from Goff next year would mean a dead cap nuke of over $60 million. That is not happening. Nobody's eating that, not even as a thought experiment. Restructuring his contract is the real direction. It saves cap space and basically locks him in for a few more seasons. So yeah, Shedeur could definitely end up starting somewhere else. He's talented, he's poised, and teams with uncertain QB rooms will pay attention. But ending up in Detroit, that would be a shocker. The timing, the contract, the scheme, the current roster, nothing really lines up for that to happen. And just to add more fuel to the conversation, Dan Campbell was asked this week about their deep passing game slowing down. He explained the balance. If you don't take shots, defenses sit on everything, but taking shots means holding the ball longer, and that's risky when protection isn't perfect. That ties right back into the Goff conversation. He's good, but he's not a creator under pressure. At the end of the day, Detroit's stuck in a crossroads. Play calling pressure, outside noise, and questions about the future all hitting at once. But what do you think? Is this team built to handle it? Drop your take and hit subscribe so you don't miss anything.